Hi everyone! I know we're super excited about the Spring Pollen Mystery Box, and I'm here to show you guys what I'm going to do with the sampler of the removable vinyl that's in the mystery box. So there are a couple of different colors in there, so I'm going to do a spring sign because it just says spring to me. So I'm using the premium removable vinyl tropical sampler. It has teal, fuchsia, bright yellow, bright green, light purple, and turquoise. I'm using everything except for the teal today because the image I picked doesn't need teal. Okay, so what I did is, per usual, I go through and I go to images and I browse through and I bookmark stuff. So I am in the beta version of Design Space today, so if you guys don't have some of these features, that would be why. So I search in all images, I'm going to put in spring. And this is the image I chose right here. You can see it's flagged to be bookmarked. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to come up like this. I'll add it to my canvas. It shows you down here it was added to canvas. So you can click view, or you could have X'd out of that image there, and it would have brought you back to your canvas. Okay, so I chose this image. It has the different colors. I'm going to make it 6.5 inches wide because that is how wide I can go for the sign, or the piece of wood I'm putting it on for my sign. And then I'm going to ungroup this because I'm going to change the orange to a yellow. Now, you don't have to change it. You can just put yellow down instead of orange, but sometimes if I'm really busy and I forget, I like to have the colors matching here so that way it's really organized. That's just how I am. And I'm going to be using my Joy Extra today, so I'm going to change my machine family to Joy Extra. And then I'm ready to click make it. Now I'm not going to save this right now, so I'm going to click don't save. I'm going to cut as many colors as I can on one mat because it's just easier. So what I do first is I will line these up to see how many I can get. I already cut my material down. I already pulled up this image. I cut my material down so I know what size I need. But what I'm going to do here is move these. I move them all on their mats here. And then I know how many I can fit on one mat without having to move them all first and then forgetting which color was which. So I do it this way. Alright, so I'm going to, as you can see, I should probably tell you this. I'm looking here and I'm like, okay, so under 10 is where the next one needs to go. I don't know if that's going to fit, so we might be, yeah. So this is the only one, the pink, that I can't fit. So then what I do is I go and I put all of my colors on my mat. So I'm going to do that quickly and then show you guys so you can see what I mean. And I put the materials on my mat before I move them to one mat. So I'm going to do that and then I'll show you guys. Okay, so you can see how I put my colors down according to where they go. And I put it on my mat so I know I already have the right colors. I don't move them around and forget. Now for this image, does it really matter? Not so much, but that may not be the case for everything that you're doing. So this is why I do this first. Now once I'm in Design Space, I can just click Move Object and put it all on one mat. And it doesn't matter which order I go in because these are already down. I've already moved them on my screen here, and then I've put the materials down on my mat, so it doesn't matter what order I do them in because I'm already organized and ready to go. And then this pink one I am going to leave at the top, so when I'm done cutting this I can just go ahead and put that pink on right in place and we are done. So I'm going to click continue, and then it's going to look for my Joy Extra. And I have 2 Joy Extras. I love it so much I bought a second. So it's going to come up and I have to pick the correct one. And then for my material, this is my new one, so I don't have many favorited yet. I'm going to browse all materials, and the easiest for me is to go to all categories and then choose vinyl. And then it's removable mat. I'll click done. And then if you don't, I'll do remember material settings, so that way I don't have to find the material again. Now if you don't have a Joy or a Joy Extra, the mat is auto-loaded, there's no buttons, so this go button, once the mat is loaded, will come up, and I push that and it starts cutting. So I'm going to cut everything off screen, and then we'll come back for assembly. Okay, so now that I'm done cutting, I'm just going to move my machine back, and I tend to weed the insides of my letters first, and I just stick them like on your scrap piece that's going to get thrown out anyway, and I peel up in a corner, and it cuts perfectly. Now I'm going to pull the design up on my computer so I remember which order everything goes in, and I have my wood piece, and I'm doing one color at a time instead of trying to put them all on one transfer tape and transferring them together. You can do either or, but in my opinion, because of this wavy like look, I think it's better to do one at a time. But again, it's your preference, whatever you find easiest. Now, I peeled up in the left-hand corner this time. It doesn't matter if it's the left or the right. It's, well, usually it doesn't. Sometimes I like to, it depends on the design, really. I like to check both sides because sometimes the letters are, like for this, the S, sometimes it's easier to pull from one direction than the other. But really, in general, it doesn't matter. You just kind of have to test it and see what you think is best. Now, I have my self-healing mat. It's this gray mat here. This is a Cricut one. They don't sell this size anymore, but they do have the 12 or the 18 by 24 one and the 12 by 12 ones. I would go at least 18 by 24 if you get one, but I absolutely love this for using it as a guide to like put my stuff down and for measurements. I use the True Control Knife weeding toolkit. I use this tip to weed. You guys can use any weeding tool. That's just the one I prefer. Okay, so now I'm going to move my extra just over to the side here. And I put this down on my mat, and I like to line it up so that I have, like, it's measured here. And then I can measure down. So this is 14 inches tall by 8 inches wide, so I can use that to place my my design. Now, my design was 6.5 inches wide, so I want to come in about 3/4 of an inch from each side, and then I believe it was about 7.5 inches tall. I'm going to check really quickly, and then I can use that as a guide for how far down I want to go, because I am applying each color one at a time. So I want it to be even. So yeah, about 7.5 inches tall. So that puts it about 6.5 inches. So we're going to go 3 1/4 down. Okay, so I'm pulling up the design on my phone because I find that easier. And I'm just going to look at the image. So the blue goes down first. And I just applied my transfer tape. This is an old piece of transfer tape, and I burnish from the front. I flip it over from the back. I flip it over and I burnish from the back. And then I'm going to remove the vinyl liner from my vinyl. You can see this is an older piece, so that didn't stick to the transfer tape. So I'm just going to bend this liner back a little and help it off of the transfer tape. Sometimes that happens with the corners. You can go back and burnish again, but for me, I find it easier to just bend that liner a little bit and take it off. Okay, so now I'm going about 3.5 inches down. No, 3 1/4. Okay, so I use my mat as a guide for that. About 3 1/4 inches in from each side. So I'm just going to line it up. Okay, now we're going to use our extra large scraper again. You can use the smaller one. And you're going to burnish that on there. This wood has been stained. It has been sealed with a water-based sealant. it is an indoor sign, so I don't have to worry. And we are going to roll our transfer tape back just like this. We do that, A, because we don't want to rip anything. We don't want to tear anything. And B, because that will help prevent bubbles. You're not going to get those bubbles because you're rolling it back. Bubbles are caused when you pull the transfer tape up. I put them in order of how we're going to go on my here so that it's easier for me. I don't have to keep looking at the design. Okay, so again, we're burnishing from the front and then from the back, and then we'll remove the liner. And at this point, because we already have one down, we can just eyeball it from here and line it all up with the design. Okay, removing that vinyl backing from the transfer tape. This also helps prevent bubbles because you're not pulling up on that transfer tape in an attempt to get it off of the backing. So that will also help prevent bubbles. There's obviously lots of different tips and tricks and stuff you can use, but these, for me, work really, really well. Okay, just line that up. And you can see how doing it one at a time works well for me. Again, you could have done the whole design, but for me, I just find this to be so much easier. I feel like as you get a bigger piece of transfer tape, there's more room for error or it's sticking down where you don't want it to. In that case, you can use parchment paper to help you with placement before you apply it all down. But for me, one at a time works. Now, I sometimes put it all on one sheet of transfer tape, but usually when it's one on top of the other. You can also use registration marks to help you line it up. So that's really just attaching a shape in the same place on each color, and then you use that, you line it all up using that. It's really easy to do. I have done it before, usually only with like bigger designs or something if I really, really need it to be 100% key. Just push that down. There we go. And you can see how this pink is a little bit more translucent. So it's taking on some of that color, which I'm fine with because I still like it. I believe the yellow is going to do the same, but I think that blue is so bright that I kind of like how it's giving it more of a, like it's darker going to lighter effect. And then it's going to end with that nice green with another top. Okay, again, removing the backing here. And then if I don't know if I'm going to add anything to this sign after. Sometimes I'm a very like minimal person in my designs, so I like to sometimes look at it and be like, do I need anything else? I don't know. And then I can always add to it. I can just measure my space and decide, you know, how big I'm going to go. It doesn't really matter, but I like to put it on first and then decide. You see this yellow wasn't as translucent as that pink, so that's got a nice springy pop color to it too. But yeah, it's really up to you, but I like to do where I look at it after, and I'm like, does it need something else? Am I good? It really depends. I am using the Cricut transfer tape in case I didn't mention it. It's just the standard grip with the gray grid. So I tend to use that on signs, and I don't have any issues with it peeling up any paint or stain, but I also follow the directions of my stain or my paint and make sure it's fully cured, and I do use a sealant depending on, usually I use a sealant, but your sealant depends on if it's for indoor use, outdoor use, what your plan is with it. But I just use, because it's going to be indoors, I just use polyacrylic, because polyacrylic is not for outdoor use, so I just used it. It's for indoor use. I'm going to go ahead, put that on. Again, we're just going to, I'm not putting really a lot of pressure on this, but vinyl's pressure sensitive, so it does need some to put it on. But I feel like you really don't need a lot of pressure. It's just more gentle pressure. Okay, so remove this. Now my transfer tape can be saved. I think that I might have thrown out the backing. Yeah, I did. I thought it was my trash from that. So I'll just put this back on the backing here, and I can just use this again and again. I have a drawer full of scrap transfer tape. That's why I use this. I use it until I can't use it anymore. Alright, and now we have a cute little spring sign from one sample pack. Alright, let me know if you guys have any questions.